Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Samantha Farley, and last weekend I ran the New York City Marathon with 50 other type 1 diabetics, and I wanted to give you a quick recap here on this YouTube video. I took some videos while I was there. Unfortunately, though, I was so focused on running that I forgot to take more videos, so I'll include all the videos here that I did take, but then at the end I'll give a recap about how it all went, how amazing it was, and all of that. So watch now. We're at the expo picking up our bib. My bib, not his bib. He's not running, just me. So I am in my hotel room, just resting my legs because it is Saturday and it is almost 5 p.m. here in New York City. I don't want to be walking around town right now. Obviously, since I have to run 26.2 miles plus walk a few miles tomorrow. So yeah, it's going to be a long day tomorrow, but I'm super excited. This morning we had our team brunch, which was super fun. So all of the Beyond Type 1 runners that are running the marathon tomorrow, we all met up for a sponsored brunch with Dexcom, Tandem, Egg Life, and we met at an ASICS store because ASICS is also a sponsor. And it was a blast. It was so cool to meet every single person and hear everyone's stories and like what they're running for, who they're running for. It was crazy also to meet all the people that were diagnosed in the past 2 years, which were almost like half of us. It was crazy. And then we've met people, you know, that are running tomorrow that have had diabetes for 40 years. So it's awesome to have such a diverse group within such a tight group, if that makes any sense. But it was so awesome. We all just hung out, talked to each other, motivated each other, and then we all kind of went on our own way. We all need to do our own thing today because it is the day before race day. So I think a lot of us are just resting today, taking it easy, you know, carb loading as much as we possibly can today before the race, maybe taking it easy tonight so we don't have to figure out the insulin in the morning, you know. But I'll update you guys tomorrow morning because tomorrow morning is race day. It's race day morning. We're about to take the subway here in about 30 minutes to Bowling Green exit, which is right by the Staten Island ferry. Our race day shirts, aren't they sweet? Beyond Type 1 gave them to us. I duct taped my name, but the back is the coolest part. That is my last name and that I run for kids living with Type 1 diabetes. We're at the Staten Island Ferry.
Nice to meet you.
Life of a diabetic. So those are all the videos I took of the marathon. I took a lot more photos, which I'll include here in the story that I'm telling, but it was such a good experience for the most part, and I'll kind of get into that here. So if you don't know much about the New York City Marathon, there are several ways to get to Staten Island in the morning because that is where the race starts. And it's kind of confusing. So if it's your first time, make sure to listen to podcasts or whatever to figure that out. So I actually stayed in Midtown. So I had to take a subway from Midtown down to the Staten Island ferry. From the ferry, it actually takes you over to Staten Island from Manhattan. Once you arrive in Staten Island, you actually have to jump on a bus to take you to the start village, which is where you wait, you know, for your crowd to actually start the race. Well, according to all the podcasts I've listened to in the past and all the things I read about the New York City Marathon, is that you don't want to get there too early to the start village because you might have to wait hours and hours and hours.
Well, unfortunately, that was not my case. It was a little worse than that. So I took the 7:30 a.m. ferry with a few other Beyond Type 1 teammates of mine. And then we got to Staten Island, maybe 8:15 to jump on a bus. Well, let me just tell you how terrible that bus situation was. Typically, according to everything I read and heard, it takes 15 to 20 minutes to get on a bus. The bus ride itself is about 30 minutes. So they want you to prepare for about a 45-minute, transition to actually get to Start Village. Well, like I just said, we actually got to Staten Island at 8:15. So in my head, I'm like, okay, great. That will get me over to the Start Village around 9-ish. That actually did not happen. We waited in line for a bus, oh man, for an hour and a half. So we were in Staten Island waiting for the bus from 8:15 to about 9:45, maybe even closer to 10. It took so long. It was a mess. There were loads of people waiting for buses, like so many people. And I'm sure you can imagine, like, there's only so much space on a bus. So when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people trying to get on a bus, it takes forever. We were all like sardines stuck in this like area, and it was so terrible. One, because I'm claustrophobic. Two, I'm a type 1 diabetic. My levels were freaking 250 when I started, but I refused to take insulin because I knew when I started running that would drop me. And it was just insane. Like, I don't know what the planners of this marathon did wrong, but they did something wrong about the bus situation. So I was supposed to start at 10:20 a.m. I did not make my start time because the bus took way too long. They close your corrals 20 minutes prior to start time. So they closed my corral at 10 a.m. I did not even get on the bus until about 10 a.m. Isn't that insane? I can't even explain to you how terrible of an experience that part was. I was so angry and frustrated because I really needed to start at 10:20. That is what I prepared in my mind. That is what I prepared when I was eating my food prior. It's difficult being a type 1 diabetic to begin with, and then you throw in all this other crap, and it was just so stressful. I'm going to include pictures here so you can see what it was like. This is a picture of me on the bus. I was frustrated. The buses were packed full, and it still took an hour and a half to even get on the bus. Once we finally get on the bus, like I just mentioned, we're all smushed in there, smushed on the bus. It's so hot. I'm sweating. I'm standing, by the way. I didn't even get a seat. I was standing, waiting just to get to the Start Village. Well, they did not shut down the roads in Staten Island. So the buses were literally like stopping at stoplights and stopping when it turned red. But that's insane because I'm already running late. I could go on about this forever, but I did not make my start time of 10:20. So I had to join the 11 o'clock start time, which I was very upset about because I told all my friends and family I was starting at 10:20. In my head, I thought I was starting at 10:20. It's not good to like screw up your mind before a marathon like that. So it kind of threw me off. But thankfully, I got on the next wave. I got on wave 4 with the 11 o'clock starters, and that is when I started. So I have to record these videos over multiple days because there's so much information to give all of you. And I want to make sure I'm telling you all about the marathon and how it went with my blood sugars. Just keep watching. I promise it gets better. The worst part of the day was the bus. So now I finally get to start at 11 a.m. and it's super cool environment. There's so many people starting at 11 a.m. It was insane. As you saw from the video I added, it's really cool because you cross the start line and they're playing New York, New York by Frank Sinatra, which was already getting me emotional because it's just so exciting of an experience. Really, I don't want to bore you with like the details of the run, but mile 1, literally, I started getting a stomach cramp. It was so bad. I was like, this cannot happen on mile 1. Like, out of all the miles, mile 1, seriously. But finally, after mile 1, when I got to mile 2, it started to go away. I don't know if it was just like my nerves, my anger, whatever it was. That cramp was terrible, but thankfully it went away. And it was really cool because I felt great actually for the first 16 miles of the run. My blood sugars were actually pretty high when I started. They were at like 250. It was really high, but with adrenaline, and then I hadn't taken any insulin all day. Unfortunately, that's just where it was. 250 is great, honestly, to start a run at, but as you all know, like I don't want to be at 250. So it's kind of one of those like mental battles in my head where I'm like, it's okay, Samantha, you're only at 250 for a few hours. It will come down. And it did. Like clockwork, my blood sugar always seems to drop around mile 7. Why? I don't know. I think my adrenaline, starts to drop a little bit and the exercise starts to kick in. So at mile 7, thankfully, my blood sugar started to drop. That was really great because I did not want to be stuck at 250 the entire race. And I felt great till mile 16. I saw my fiance and his friend at mile 8. That was really cool because they actually stood in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, which is right where my sister used to live. And they literally stood right in front of her old apartment. So it was really, really cool. I knew exactly where to find them, which was sweet. And if you've ever ran a race before, you know how important it is to like see people, because when you're just like struggling and then you see a familiar face, it means so much. And so I really just love that they were there for me. Brooklyn's vibe was awesome. Everybody was screaming. The streets were packed with people and they were like almost like closing in on us, which was actually really cool. There was no blockers for the fans. So they were coming in on us and it was really, really cool. And everyone's screaming on top of their lungs. And I would say Brooklyn was by far the best part in terms of the crowds because people were just shouting and I don't know, I loved it. It means a lot to me too because that's where my sister lived and I visited her many times. So it was just a really, really cool experience. Things started to go downhill at mile 16. And that is because I started to get leg cramps. So I hadn't had any more stomach cramps, but now I started getting cramps in my legs and that was terrible. So I started running and just like, the feeling of like a Charlie horse, that's what was happening while I was running. And I'm pretty positive it was because I was sweating a lot because it was really, really warm in New York. It was like 75 degrees and I just wasn't drinking enough water or having enough salt. Mile 16 was tough because that was the bridge. And so I'm going up the bridge struggling because my legs are like going like this, they're like cramping and I'm freaking out. But thankfully I did have salt tablets with me and I made sure to stop at every water station. There was a water station every single mile. So I literally stopped at every single one because I knew I was like, I cannot run another 10 miles with these cramps. So I was pounding salt tablets. I was pounding water. It actually got a lot better mile 20. So it took about 3 miles for my legs to like stop cramping. But at mile 20, it got a lot better. I saw my fiance and his friend at mile 19 and then mile 22, which was awesome. The fact that they saw me 3 times is so cool. Sometimes you just can't do that, especially in New York City. It's kind of hard because it's not like a loop, right? You're going from like one area all the way to the other. So it was really cool that they were able to see me 3 times. In terms of my blood sugars, so like I mentioned, they started to drop at mile 7. Well, by mile 10, they were dropping like crazy, like double arrow down. So I was really freaking out naturally. I started pounding all of this sugar, like a ton of sugar. I think I probably ate 50 grams of carbs because I was so nervous, or 50 grams of sugar too, like fast acting sugar. But it worked. So my blood sugars stopped going down and they finally went back up and they actually went back up to like 225, which once again, on race day, that's great. You want it to go up because it's just going to go back down again. So that actually was a really good thing that I did, was pounded sugar also around mile 10. And then it was around mile 20 again that, my blood sugars went up and then started going back down. So around mile 20, I had to just pound sugar again. We all have the same problems, like me and someone who's not a diabetic, right? We need to fuel, but the benefit that the other normal human doesn't have to think about are their blood sugars and like making sure they don't die, right? So that's just an added stress that we have, but we're all rock stars. We can figure it out. If you have to stop, it's okay. But thankfully I did not have to stop. And I was watching my blood sugars pretty religiously, like every mile, making sure that they weren't dropping too low. I finally finished the race. I think my time was like 4:47 total for the marathon, which is pretty much what I expected. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit earlier, but those last 10 miles were tough. I definitely slowed down a bit. My pace dropped about 1 minute per mile. So I was running 11-minute miles for the last 10 miles. So unfortunately, I did not hit my goal time of 4:30, but that's okay. I finished only 20 minutes after that. So it was just a really, really great experience. So I know I was giving all this crap earlier about the bus situation, which still kind of angers me, but the rest of the race was amazing. New York City was amazing. The fans, the crowds, amazing. So amazing. There's so many people out there just cheering you on, and it's so exciting. You know, it makes you feel like you're actually like super, super important. And it's really cool, especially as a diabetic. It means a lot for me too, because, you know, we've all been through so much, and running with diabetes is the hardest thing in the world. I don't know, I was getting emotional at certain miles just when I saw people's faces screaming for me. It was just really, really cool. And then when I finished, I did start tearing up a little bit because I was so happy, one, to be done, but two, the fact that I just did that. I just ran a marathon with a broken pancreas, with a non-working pancreas. How cool is that? Not only me, 50 other of my teammates who have type 1 diabetes ran it. So if you're thinking, oh, I can't run a marathon, like now that I have a broken pancreas, like I ain't running a marathon, well, guess what? You can do it. If 50 of us did it, you can absolutely do it. That is kind of my marathon recap. The good news is I will sign up for another half marathon, guaranteed. Marathon, we'll see. We'll see. That is my race recap. I'm sorry for rambling, but it's just exciting to talk about. And if you guys have any questions about like running with diabetes, let me know below, because I'm not a pro by any means. It's all a trial and error process, but I'd love to give you tips if you would like them. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching all of my videos, watching this running video. I know it's not like super interesting probably for a lot of you, but I love that you guys are here and supporting me and other type 1s. And I just want to thank you for being rock stars. Thanks, guys. See you next week.